Welcome to the SPAC Alpha web series. My name is Dan Dombroski, and today I'll speak with Mathieu Bonnet and Louwers, the CEO and CFO of Allego. Allego offers EV charging solutions with a network of stations based out of Europe. We discuss the evolution of the EV charging market, the competitive landscape, and how Allego plans to expand. Please enjoy my conversation with Mathieu and Tom. Mathieu, your experience predates your tenure at Allego, but could you walk me through what your journeys looked like to get here?
Yes, sure, with pleasure. I'm not going to begin, as we say, ab ovo, but I worked mostly in the energy sector and in CO2 free, I would say, in nuclear at the beginning, and then I shift to renewable energy. And I used to run a big hydro company in France, and that's where I had a first try with EVs more than 12 years ago, when we installed some chargers, the slow chargers, level 2 chargers, in order to use our electricity generated by our hydropower plants in these new chargers. And for us, it was a mean to have a kind of equilibrium about this energy with new demand, which is the e-mobility. Well, I must say that at that time, 12 years ago, there were very few cars, and the battery size was very small, and to charge took a very long time. But that was the first flavor I had with EVs. And looking back, I do believe that with what we see right now, the journey is quite phenomenal, because now it's really in Europe mainstream EVs. And just to give you the last figure of Q4 2021, 17% of all the sales of passenger cars in Europe were with full battery electric vehicle. So it's quite huge, and in 2035 it will be forbidden to sell any ICE cars in Europe. So every car will be, at the end of the day, EVs. So a massive shift of more than 220 million in the years to come, in the decades to come, will be electric.
No, you're speaking about the European market, but a lot of our viewers are based out of the US. Could you give context on what the difference is between those two markets?
Sure. Well, first of all, that's the number. That's the size of the market, because I've talked about 17%, compared with a few percent in the US as full battery vehicle sales in Q4 2021. So when you just have a walk in the street in Europe, you just see EVs everywhere. So that's quite phenomenal. I'm pretty sure that that's not the case in the US. So the EV penetration is much higher in Europe than we've seen in the US, and there are reasons for that. I do think that, well, we have denser cities, so it makes sense to have this kind of vehicles. I think that the average mileage of European cars is less than the US as well, and the distances between cities are much shorter than within the US. So I think the anxiety range that existed in Europe now is disappearing quite quickly, because we are building, and Allego is a major actor for that, we are building the infrastructure to quickly charge and ultra fast charge your car. But maybe that's not still the case in the US, given the pure size of the country, and the structure of the cities which are very spread. That's a guess, because we are mostly ourselves, we are only in Europe so far.
So I think that lays really good groundwork for what the industry looks like. Now, when you took the reins about 2 years ago, I believe, of the company, mm-hmm. what was the state of the company, and what has been your initiatives, up to this current state?
Well, the company had already a very strong base, and the company has always pioneered the sector of public charging. So and that's our motto. We want to bring to any cars, so to any EV cars, whatever the brand, Tesla, Nissan, Ford, whatever, and sorry for the ones I haven't quoted, a capacity to charge. And we want to do it on a public space because we do believe that home charging is not enough. Just an example, in the Netherlands, 70% of the households cannot charge at home because they do not have garage or driveways. So they need to go somewhere in public space. And if you do that, you want to charge quickly. So that's the reason why we were very quick to shift to this new technology, the fast charging, to charge in 1 hour, for instance, to the ultra fast to charge in less than 15 minutes. And we were the first in Europe to install in 2017 the first public ultra fast charging station. And by public, I mean open and accessible to any cars, any EVs. And that's what we do. So from that, 2 years ago, I accelerate with all the team this process, and we as well wanted to own our sites. That's a major shift from the beginning. I guess that we decided that these sites were great, and we wanted to have them on our balance sheet, and so that's the reason why we want to invest, and that's the reason why we went to this process of the SPAC in order to increase our funding in the company.
And what do all your products look like, if you can lay those out?
So our product is simple. We provide you a charging station. When you bring your car, you plug in our charging station. You spend 15-20 minutes. You can, because we have amenities around our sites and we want to make sure that we can have that. You can have something to do, grab a coffee or buy something, and you come back in your car and you go on your journey. And so you can do that in few minutes compared with hours with a level 2 chargers, for instance, a public charger on the pavement on your in the street, or in your home charging when you will have to charge during all night.
A big argument, I guess against EV is pulling that much electricity from the grid and the ability to sustain that level of power. How does that translate in Europe?
Well, I do believe that the state of and the structure of the grid is more robust in Europe than in the US. So that's the reason why we have less issue with this, to be honest. When we have some issues in some areas, we can have some smart charging in order to mitigate the issue of this high power. And if we still have some issue, we could add some batteries on the side. But so far, that's not something that impede us to roll out all our station. We can always have the grid connection, and we have never seen any issues regarding this aspect on our charging station.
And how does that the rollout of, let's say, going the solar route, what does that look like? Is that feasible in most of your locations?
Yeah, it could be feasible, but here we do believe that it's more efficient to use the main, to be clear, because that's and I will come back on the energy side, but we do believe that to have scattered power production is not sometimes the best way to have an efficient plant. So that's the reason why we, even for renewable, we do believe as well that to have big structure is quite interesting in terms of efficiency and in terms of land management as well.
And what about the storage capacity aspect?
So far, I said we could put some battery and storage on our charging station, but so far we don't use them. It's really a question of cost between peak and off-peak price of electricity and the cost of the batteries. But we can manage without batteries. What is interesting is it's sometimes, and just have that in mind. What we do when we have some constraint, we can have some peak shaving, and because we have, well, thousands of chargers, tens of thousands of chargers. If you just reduce 5% of the capacity rate and you aggregate that in real time, you can have a huge amount of power. And by doing that, you can manage the constraints on all the grids. And that's what we do with our software.
So what do you see as setting yourself apart from your competitors?
We have the technology, which is I guess very important and a very important differentiator. First of all, we own our own platform to monitor also the EV cloud platform to monitor our chargers, to onboard them from, as I said, from the energy supply to the authorization and billing. And we have as well another component of this platform, which is our Allego tool that enables us to find out the right spot on a given area. So this tool was built from the beginning and from our very own experience. Why that? Because when we installed the first fast, and it was the fast station, not ultra fast, we consider, well, could be a good site to be there. So we install our charger there. And as a matter of fact, it was not a good site because we had a very low rate in terms of traffic. So we decided to do, no, we cannot now guessing where we should be. We need to have some data and to have some certainty about where we could be. So that's the reason why we developed a comprehensive tool to forecast the traffic, given the situation where we are, the roads, the inhabitants, the number of cars, registered cars around. So we have developed these internal tools with more than 100 variables. We are back testing it continuously with the actuals and the forecast to see if we are okay. And with that, we can have as an output, well, of course, the forecast, but the layout of the charging station we should have, how many chargers, to begin maybe with 3, 4, and to have an increase and when, given the traffic and the ramp up of the traffic we forecast. So this tool we do believe is very unique comparing with what we have seen, and enables us to work in 2 directions. Top down, given a certain area, we spot the place where we would like to go, and as well bottom up. When we are offered some sites by landowners, we can check if they are good or not good, and sometimes they are not so good, so we are not going to invest, and we say, oh, sorry, but the traffic is not yet here. Maybe will be interesting in a few years, but we are not going to spend right now because it's not wise, and the return will be too low or too long.
And to give context on scale, what markets are you in, and what markets are you looking to expand into?
I will let Don to answer this question. He knows by heart all the rollout.
Yeah, sure. So then we're currently active in I can say almost every country in Europe. So starting where the company also starts from, the Netherlands and let's say call it Benelux, so Belgium included, Germany, France, UK, all the Nordic countries, and recently also our first chargers in Spain and Italy and Portugal were installed. So that's and the focus is actually still on the, let's call it the northern part of the of Europe, because there's where the EV penetration has always been the highest, and we currently see that specifically France and the UK and Germany are picking up quickly, and the more Mediterranean countries will follow actually right after that. And when we talk about Germany, we also include Austria and Switzerland in that. So basically what we call the DACH region.
And what's the scale of these markets, or what's the opportunity within them? So
if you look at the EV density at the moment, because that's the EV car sales, the currently, the Netherlands is still together with Norway one of the highest. We see a big ramp up in the UK and Germany. I think France a bit behind that, but the opportunity is immense if you look at the regulatory push that's coming from the European Union, but also all the big OEMs that have actually openly declared that they will in different in different years, but between, let's say, 2025 and 2035, let's say there will be a ban on most of the European big cities to enter the city with an ICE car, and the big OEMs will stop with the manufacturing of these ICE cars, and will all shift to electric cars. And that's what we see on a daily basis. And Europe is actually ahead of the rest of the world when it comes down to that. So there's an immense opportunity and acceleration actually also in all of these markets compared to 1 or 2 years ago.
Now, just regarding this country, now all the big countries, Germany, in terms of population and in terms of size of the market linked with the number of cars. Of course, you have Germany, France, and UK in Europe. And just have in mind that nearly 20% of the sales in Q4 2021 in Germany were full battery electric vehicles. And when you think about the German OEM, Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, which are based on combustion engine, 20% of the sales now are full battery. So that's a huge, you can imagine a huge shift in what's going on, and so it's really here. It's happening, and it's ramping up tremendously.
Yeah, and the same in the UK, by the way, and in the Netherlands it was even 40%, right? So on average for Europe, including UK, was 17% in Q4 full battery electric vehicles.
And what does the distribution of the charging station network look like for you?
So regarding this distribution, we are most interested in cities or suburban areas where we can find some retail shops. Because even if we can ultra fast charge our car, you spend now 15-20 minutes. So you want to have something to do, and it's much nicer to do it with a retail shop around to do something. So that's the reason why with our tool, because we have a very advanced tool in order to find out the base case with traffic forecast, these specific areas are really the one that with the highest traffic around. It's not surprise because you have many cars, you have parking, etc. So that's the reason why we are signing long-term lease agreements with the landowners, landlords, 15 or even longer term, 20 years. We bring for them a new service, which is the capacity to charge, and we take care of everything, and we have our own charging station on these sites. So that's what we like. So comparing to others, we have as well charging station on highways, on big roads, but we prefer to have this kind of sites because we are sure that we have a lot of traffic around to find cars to charge without any difficulties.
So you're going with the operator model for this. What's the advantage to alternative models that your competitors have gone with?
There are two kind of models. The first one, you are the full operator and you own your station, and for us that's the model with the highest return. Makes sense because otherwise you would not invest. So that's quite normal, I would say. There is another model where for which you can sell the product, which is a charging station, but you do not own it. You just bring the service with the charger, the installation, and it is owned by another one. Could be the landowners, but in that case, you are remunerated just as an engineering company, for instance, as a sales and service company. At Allego, we have both models. But we are more and more interesting, and we want to own our models, so that's our stations. So that's the reason why we want to invest in our station, but because that's where the highest value is.
I mean, this approach certainly sounds more capital intensive.
Absolutely.
Now, looking at
there is one with a lot of capex, and the other one that's a service activity.
So I'd like to really expand on this, and looking at the units themselves. What does that manufacturing process look like?
So, important to understand at Allego, we do not manufacture our chargers. Okay, we use different vendors. it was a choice at the beginning of the company in 2013 to focus not on the hardware, but to focus on the platform, on the IT system, to make all these chargers work together, to have a real-time monitoring with the energy and the supply, to have to take care of the authorization and to process all the payments. And with that, we have developed our own proprietary platform, and we are one of the only one to have our own. We can add any features we want, and we are able to onboard and to use any kind of chargers, which is very different, for instance, compared with the Tesla charging station, where you at the beginning only Tesla's car. So it's a closed loop. We are an open loop, I would say, with any chargers from vendors supplying any cars. So it's a bit more complex in terms of communication and authorization and all of this. But that's what we do with our platform. And we already processed more in 2021, 6 million charging stations. So that's our industrialization is here. And in the design of the layout of the stations, exactly knowing what kind of configuration we want, depending on the spot location, as well the kind of and requirements of chargers we want, and to be able to do it in a very efficient and industrial way, in order to have very, I would say, short duration of in-field work, for instance, for our landlord, but as well for our costs. So that's where the optimization comes in.
What does your vendor selection process look like?
Yeah, so it's actually, we have two things in place. Then first of all, we have a pretty rigorous factory acceptance test process, which we always do at the factory of the manufacturer, where we test according to our own protocols, both technical as well as communication components or elements, I should say. So that's all being done. So that's a first step in order to, let's say, for manufacturers to let's say, to be allowed in, quote unquote, if you want to put it like that. Then after that, we do field tests. So as soon as we think that a charger is up to standards, we'll start testing it also in the field, because what we have experienced in the past years, and here's where our long-standing experience with these kind of chargers also comes in, that sometimes these chargers behave outside a bit different than inside a factory, especially when users come into play. So, you know, we always do the field testing, and we always also do at the let's say, during an installation process, at the end, there's always a kind of a, let's say, operational period during which we let's say, also test the chargers before we actually finally commission them. So that's how next to all the of course all the paperwork, but this is how we test manufacturers. Now, there's been no real lack of components the past years, and we still don't, especially not in terms of spare parts, see actually a lack of components. If you look inside the chargers, you know, and don't forget, you know, we have been doing this from 2014 until today, so we know and kind of grew with the development of these kind of chargers into the market. So we had all the experiences, good and bad, with them. And I think critical components are always power units, but also the cooled cables, right? So and I think in the evolution of the manufacturers and of the chargers, we've actually seen them moving away from these critical components. You know, if I talk about cooled cables, for instance, we had leakages, things like that. So that's all been taken care of by adjustments and by making necessary changes. So today we don't experience any shortage, any critical components that we cannot get our hands on, and more we're also stocking these let's say, the components that we need on a regular basis ourselves, so that we're not depending on production times, especially not at this moment. And the final thing I want to say about this is that going forward, we're really looking at let's say, predictive, prescriptive maintenance tools through our data, you know, through asset management systems. We are able to predict failures on component level based on the history that we have, and we have a long-standing history, so we will be able to anticipate any failure in time and actually see it coming and take it out before it breaks down.
And who's actually servicing the stations?
We subcontract that to service parties, so these go like the manufacturers and our installation parties also through a rigorous acceptance process. First of all, of course, there's the contractual considerations, but we also train them, and every mechanic that goes on site needs to have certification. So and that's being done by us and in close cooperation with the manufacturers, so it all comes together that both installers as well as service mechanics know what to do, because we're not selling cookies here. There's a safety aspect related here as well, and we are responsible, and we take that responsibility very seriously, that everybody that goes on site also can get home safely again.
Sure. And what's the most common failure? And in addition to that, what's the more expensive failure component to this?
Yeah, I would say it's the power unit inside the chargers. So that's
for our ultra fast charger. That's yes, that's the power unit. What is important as well to have in mind that maybe a bit differently from what we see with fueling station, all our chargers are monitored online, and we need to track what's going on centrally, because you cannot serve this kind of charging station with people around all the time, otherwise it is uneconomic. So that's the reason why it's very important to have the right technology to find root cause and to be able to have actions remotely to start off again when you have a failure, and to do it automatically. So that's where the techno is very keen. We can see some issues with communications, because we are dealing with real-time communications, and in some places, sometimes remote places. So with 4G or whatever, 5G, it needs to work, and we are working with a lot of authorization as well and certificates, and it must work with all the systems. So we have a technical, well, I would say physical subject with the charger per se, but there is always all the link with the backend that must work properly to have a very high uptime, as we want to serve as efficiently as possible our customers.
And what does that uptime look like?
Where we are at 99%, I would say, and that's something that we want to increase as well, to have the same level of service as with your fueling station. The complexity with our industry, which is a young industry, is nothing to do with the charge per se, but it is linked with the authorization and the payment system, because we have many solutions to pay. You can use token, you can use RFID, because for small chargers you cannot pay with credit card. For bigger one you can. So NFC. So we have a bunch, Apple Pay or whatever. So we have a bunch of system to pay, and at the end of the day we'll have, well, no system at all, meaning that we are developing the plug and charge. You plug your charge, everything is done automatically, removed, and you have automatically authorized, and it is paid, and directly connected to your account. So you are developing that. You can imagine that we need to have certificates to authenticate without any issue with encryption, because we want to have a safe system. All of this is happening right now, but that's quite interesting to see that it is moving very quickly. And at the beginning of this industry, we paid only with token. So you have a RFID token, and it was a way to to work. But with a mass market adoption now, our customers, they want to pay with credit card, for instance. So we need to take care and to adapt to this one as well.
Now, I do want to continue on the actual unit component of this, but you bring up a good point about the payment solutions, and playing into the convenience for the end user. Now, if somebody's driving up to a parking lot and they see your charging station compared to a competitor, what's the difference?
I think, you know, in the end, what makes an EV driver choose between any charger is I think uptime. So I mean it's all being measured, and you know quickly whether a site and a charger is reliable or not. And it's actually the amenities around that, because actually the answer we should give is that on one of our sites you will never find a charger of a competitor, because we always have full exclusivity. So they will simply choose a site, not a charger. And we target these premium sites with amenities on that. So your supermarket, your dry cleaner, Burger King, Starbucks, the likes of those, and just in those suburban areas. So we actually combining or make an EV driver able to combine his charging experience with other daily stuff that they need to do. So I think that really sets us aside. It's not as if we target destination tracking on a highway. We'd like our sites to be close to a highway, because then we can actually capture that traffic as well. But we're really putting a different audience here, I would say.
And what does the utilization rate breakdown look like for break even, and how you currently operate?
Okay, so just to make a very clear definition of the utilization rate, because there are different definitions out there. We use 50 charging sessions per charger per day as 100%. Right, so that's our reference. We know we need 3% utilization rate, so 1.5 charging sessions per charger per day to break even at gross margin level. And for us, that also means that as of that moment, we start generating a positive cash flow on that specific charger or on that site. We need 6.5 to 7% utilization rate to start generating positive IRRs. And we're currently at around 8% on the full network. So we're in what we call the green zone. We're generating cash on our sites, on our network. We're generating positive IRR on our network, and we see let's say the best sites, the more mature sites, are around 20% utilization rates, and that's just depending on the time that they are actually have been commissioned. So there's a certain ramp-up period that we actually also see accelerating. And just as a final note, we are about 2 to 3 percentage points ahead of our expectation when we prepared the business plan. So if you look at the business plan, it's actually a bit conservative from that perspective. Market is accelerating far quicker than we anticipated.
And you brought up a good point about the incentives aspect. What does the regulatory environment currently look like, and how do you see that changing going forward?
So I'll just talk about two incentives, and then we can talk about the regulatory part. Mathieu will jump in there as well. So let's say from an incentive part, we are eligible for CapEx subsidies from European programs. And just for the record, we've captured 4 or 5 of them in the past. So we have a long-standing history. We know how to deal with those kind of programs, which is, they're rather intense. So that's a CapEx subsidy. And we are eligible for what we call a carbon credit which is actually, we used 5 cents. It's actually a bit higher, I think, at the moment, per kilowatt hour that is being taken from our network. And that's a P&L subsidy, right? So those are the 2 ones that we capture at the moment. We are looking at all kind of local subsidies. In every country, there are different subsidy programs to capture, and we will do that. And also here again, looking at the business plan, none of that is included. So we just wanted to not be too aggressive on that. So we've excluded that, but we are eligible for these. So maybe Mathieu, you can jump in for the regulatory part.
Yes, I will. Just I would like to add that our business in Europe flies without any subsidies. Okay, that's important. So it means that we are in a real business. We can make a return, high return with what we do and the layout of our station. Of course, it helps, and it has helped at the beginning for the ramp up, for the very beginning. In some area where the traffic is not yet very advanced, it will be very useful. But all in all, when we have the cars in the street, we can make it happen anyway, because the business is easy. Regarding the regulatory framework, in terms of globally speaking, EV, it is very favorable in Europe. Of course, they are very pushy. Just few words about that. Well, we have a common umbrella at the European level. So that's good, because at the end of the day, even if we have what we call local transposition in different countries, we have the same flavor everywhere. Okay, that's quite important. And in that case, it's not maybe it may be more. We have a convergence which is higher than in the US, given what's going on in the States regarding the fuel standards, for instance, if I compare with the US. And because, so we are very pushy in Europe regarding EVs. So it means that as of 2035, no more sales of combustion engine vehicles. That's one. Second, most of the OEM, it's not regulatory, but because of that, decided to stop any sales of ICE car, internal combustion engine cars, as of 2030. And in some areas, and that's regulatory, big cities, it will be forbidden to enter the city with a combustion engine vehicle, either car or vans, for instance, for logistics delivery, as of 2025. So it's tomorrow. That's the reason why the market is here, and we need to charge this vehicle, and we need to charge them quickly. So there's a reason why when we are building hub around suburban areas, that's good way to provide a solution for people to charge their car, to enter the city, and maybe to recharge if they want to go back home.
So even without the incentives, you're still a profitable company.
Yes.
So
yes, we are very short part of this incentive.
Could you break down what your revenues and your profit margins currently look like, and what you're projecting going forward?
I let our CFO turn on this.
So last year's revenue, we at least 100 million USD. So for us, that's 86 million euros. The breakdown of that is that roughly 25% is charging revenue and 75% is service revenue. If we look forward, revenues are projected to climb to 1.2 billion euro by 2026, and by then the distribution between those two has actually flipped. So 75%, around 75% or 80% will be charging revenue, and 20 to 25% will be service revenue. So that's how it will actually evolve over time, where for 2021 and 2022 there's a relative high amount being contributed from the service revenues because of one or two major contracts that we have to deliver. And then you say, actually after that, you see the capex that we are deploying in this year and next year kicking in, and charging revenue will take over.
So in the event of higher redemptions from going public via SPAC with Spartan, how do you expect to fund your capex going forward?
Well, first of all, I would like to highlight the fact that we have 150 million that are in our pipe that are fully committed. So we will already begin with that, which is enough to fund our years. That's one. Second, we have new way to fund our capex, and here I would like to highlight one interesting one we have developed, not for our own capex, but for a third party in 2021. but Allego developed all the sites with a retailer, a big retailer, Carrefour, to name it. With an investors, Meridiam, we were able to raise debt, non-recourse debt on this special purpose vehicle that own the assets. And so we had a good leverage. And it was the first of its kind. And I do believe that we have we have created and we have built a milestone in funding our network. So it means that we could use that. So this non-recourse debt, and we can see some appetite now on the markets to do that. And because of our technology, because our history, of course, and because of our experience and our model of traffic, we bring confidence. So that's important for, of course, for the bank and for the lenders for non-recourse debt. So we do believe that whatever happens, we will be able to use this kind of funding. So we will be able either to expand more than expected, because for the same amount of capex we could do more, or if we have less capex, we could do the same with debt like that. Again, it will increase our footprint, but as well it will increase because of the leverage, the return and the value of our assets.
This kind of lays the groundwork that you seem to have contingencies in place, both from an operational aspect and from capital.
Yes,
but what do you see as the biggest risk or risks to actually being able to execute on what it is that you're projecting?
Well, there is always a risk of execution in industrial business. Otherwise, we won't do business. I do think that regarding where we want to be in terms of location, for instance, for our stations and what we want to do on these stations, there is few little risk. Why? Because we have already our backlog. So it's really an execution risk in terms of putting online our charging station. And the main risk we see here, that's maybe some delays in the commissioning date of the station because of not grant permitted, but connection permitting, because it can take some times to have them. But otherwise, there is few risks. The market is here, as we have talked a lot about that before. So, and we can see it with our utilization rate again. So we don't expect to see a lot of issues in the rolling out of our charging station and in the utilization of them in the next months and years, to be honest.
And to elaborate on that, what milestones or events should investors be holding you to as you do execute on this roadmap?
I think important KPI for us, that's the number of charging stations we have, and that will be online during our journey, and to see if we are on track on our BP. The utilization rate, and here again, that's easy to install a station in the middle of nowhere, but if you don't have any cars to charge, that's not very useful. So you need to have good sites, and you need to promote your sites to make you known, so that any EV drivers can reach you easily. That's important. So we are as well building some marketing around with POI, with of course information about the web, etc., to be known and to find us in the different navigation system, of course. And then the electricity we sell, because again, there is another component that's not the same to charge, or to have for the same number of station, I don't know, 10 kilowatt hour of charging station or 30 kilowatt hour. So you sell more, so you are going to have a higher revenue. So all these components will be KPI that are interesting to track on our business. And as well, it will be a good, I think, a good matrix to track the growth of the EV penetration and the EV adoption in the different market we are in.
What's going to be the biggest deterrence for new competitors to enter the space?
For me, there are two. First, the technology. It sounds obvious to have a platform to onboard chargers, to monitor that, to track, etc. But that's a lot of technology to do that. If you want to be scale up, and if you cannot reach a certain target in terms of efficiency, it won't be interesting. So there's a reason why you really need to have a strong and robust platform with all the features needed to do that, and that's difficult to do. We have spent 10 years, and we are spending resources, and we are going to increase our leadership as well in the future to invest even more with the proceeds of the SPAC to be ahead of the pack in this. And I think that's a major differentiator, and that's difficult to acquire. By the way, that's the reason why we do not sell any SaaS service on our platform, because it's so much important. We want to keep it ourselves and to run it directly as a service, but we run it ourselves. Okay, that's one. The second one is that you need to have the right location, and again, you need to have some tools. You need to have data to see where you can install your chargers if you want to be a pure player as we are. And here you need as well to have some tools. And last but not least, maybe a third one, that we are talking about big charging station, so something like more than 1-2 megawatts. And with that, well, it's not like installing a small charger with few kilowatts. You need to have the knowledge of the electricity knowledge, the grid capacity knowledge, and the supply knowledge of energy, and 100% renewable energy, which is key for us. So again, so that's the reason why we have here some barrier of entry, and that's the reason why we don't see many big new network online. We have the one we knew a few years ago. They are still there. They are expanding as we are expanding, but no new ones.
We've covered the competitive landscape. We've talked about your operations, what your capital plans are, and how you're going to be expanding into new markets. We've also discussed the regulatory component of it and what the current state of the EV charging segment looks like and what that looks like going forward. But I do want to give you the chance to give any comments of anything that investors should be caring about.
Okay, regarding the geography, we want to be at the end of the day everywhere in Europe because of the market we have mentioned. We are entering now with new projects in Italy, and we have just released a big push with Tamoil today, if I'm not mistaken, with them on their fueling stations. So yeah, we really want to be everywhere first in Europe, and then we will look at as well elsewhere. But so far our BP is on Europe. The US will be, of course, a big region, if I may say so, that we will look at. Because we could bring some expertise as well, but we will do it, I think, in a later stage, because the market is less advanced. So we are not lagging too much, and we will see what we can do. And there are some interest for partnerships. So we'll consider that in the future.
Well, I really appreciate you both taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thanks, Dan.